Thanks, everybody. It's not every day a Coastie gets to be the grand finale, right? So again, my name's Colin, and been in the Coast Guard for about 6 years. My sister joined the Air Force Academy, and I got to see her graduate. And my dad is a retired commander, so I grew up in a military family, and always wanted to be part of something larger than who I was. And going to work with my dad and seeing my sister walk across the podium to shake George W. Bush's hand at her graduation was pretty inspiring. So I joined the Coast Guard because two reasons mostly. I wanted to help people, and my dad will tease me about this one, but I was about 2 seconds away from signing up with the Marine Corps, so I love you guys very much, but he just says, Colin, I know you, you're my son, just go talk to the Coast Guard. And I have a huge passion for the ocean. I was a surfer from a young age and just fell in love with the ocean. And obviously my dad knew me a lot better than I was of myself at the time, and I signed up. So I'm currently stationed at the Maritime Force Protection Unit, Naval Base Kitsap Bangor, Washington, and I have to tease you guys a little bit, but the Navy has a very large submarine base over there, and they don't really have the authority that the Coast Guard does when it comes to homeland security that the Coast Guard does. So they hired us to be a escort service for them when their submarines transit in and out of the Puget Sound. So we escort them to make sure they're safe and to make sure no small boats or anything comes close to them. So that's where I'm currently at now. My job in the Coast Guard is maritime enforcement. That's very similar to your MAs or Master at Arms, but I'm a little biased. We're a little bit more specialized than that. Our main focus is mostly counter narcotics, anti-piracy. So it could be as simple as going on board your sailboat to check your life preservers and make sure you have all your safety gear, or to catching 2,000 pounds of cocaine down off the Caribbean. So about my Coast Guard history, so I joined back in 2009, and from my training, I went down to Charleston, South Carolina. I was on a ship down there for about a year and a half, and toured all around the Caribbean. Like I said, when we caught 2,000 pounds of cocaine, that was what made me decide this is what I want to do, because I had some friends in high school that got hooked up with the drugs and were addicts in that regard, and I thought, maybe I can help prevent that from affecting someone else, because drugs can kill people, and I thought this is a good thing. 2,000 pounds of cocaine is worth a lot of money, and that's possibly 2,000 people that could be killed from it. So from there, I went overseas. I volunteered for a special assignment. Our home area was in Bahrain, and we spent a lot of time in Kuwait and here up in Iraq. So after that, I came home, went to my MEA school, as they call it, so Maritime Enforcement A school. And from there, I went to Washington in Seattle area. So about my hobbies and things like that, I guess a more appropriate question is, what hobbies am I not interested in? So I'm an avid surfer. I love to go camping, backpacking, and I was involved with CrossFit for a very long time. And through CrossFit, I found my favorite sport, and that's Olympic weightlifting. It's a very cool sport, and the injury rates in that sport are at the very, the all-time low for the Olympics. So it's a very safe sport. You think, oh, you're just picking up weights. There's more to it than that, but it's a very safe sport. So you're probably asking, why am I here today, guys? About a year ago or so, 10 months perhaps, a real good friend of mine up north in Washington, he was a rock climber, is a rock climber, and he and I worked together. He was one of the very first friends I had when I got stationed up there. He just came up to me, shook my hand, he's like, "Hey, buddy, what's your name?" "Oh, I'm Colin." He goes, "Oh, what's your job?" "Oh, I'm an ME." And he's like, "Oh, I'm an engineer, and what do you like to do?" Well, small world, and it's a very small Coast Guard. We had all the things in common. We loved to snowboard, we loved to camp, we loved to go backpacking. And then he asked me, he's like, "Oh, you ever gone rock climbing?" I said, "Well, only at an indoor gym. I've always wanted to try it outside because it'd be amazing." And so he took me under his wing, and he's a great climber, and we started. And I just got hooked on it, as they say. Just the experience of outside, the experience with your friends, the communication you have to have with each other. So on the 5th of October, my friend and I went climbing at an area called Green something. Anyway, we had hiked in the week prior before, and he says, "Hey, Colin, I hear there's a really cool place to go climb. Why don't we go check it out and see if it's okay?" I said, "Sure," and I can recall hiking in with him. So we hiked in the week before, checked it out, and we're like, "Yeah, buddy, we can totally climb here." So the next week, on Sunday, the 5th of October, he and I hiked in. It was about 2 miles or so from the truck. Had to carry all of our climbing gear. And we set up what's called a top rope anchor. So I don't know if there's any climbers here, but if you go into an indoor climbing gym, the rope is anchored at the top of the wall. And it's very common to do on small rocks and for training or just to teach someone. So the rock we climbed at was about 50 feet tall, or no, 60, I'm sorry. And he was, we would climb, he would climb, I would climb, and we'd have each other on the end of the rope to make sure if they took a little fall, we'd just stop right there. So he told me we climbed for a couple hours, and this is what I don't have any recollection of this ever happening. And he's told me about 10 times because I didn't want to forget my story. Because that happens when you smack your head. So he and I took a little time out to get some water and have a little snack. And I said, "Hey, Matt, I'm just going to do a solo climb." That's where, as a climber, you're not clipped into the rope. You're just climbing up to wherever you're going. And then once you're there, you clip into the rope and you can rappel on your own back down. Well, I did it twice, and then he told me, he's like, "All right, Colin, one more time, we'll do it together and then go home and have a drink," which was kind of our tradition. You gotta have a celebratory drink after you go climbing. Well, the third time's a charm, guys. My friend was at the very top of the rock, and I was about 50 feet up. And I don't know what possessed me to go, "Yeah, I'm gonna go climb up and not clip into a rope." Like, that's smart thinking. So I was at about 50 feet, and my friend told me he heard a rock break off, and then he looked over his shoulder, and off I went down. So what I'm thinking what happens when I made my transition from a hold to another hold, the rock I held onto broke off, and then I lost my center of gravity, and that's what caused me to fall. So I fell about 50 feet. People say 30 or 20, but my partner says, "Colin, you fell 50 feet. He's like, "I think your head hit the rock about halfway down." And because this was such a relatively easy climb, in climbing they call it a 5.8. And per the Yosemite decimal system, if a 1.0 is just walking up this little carpet, up a little hill, 5 is a vertical wall, and then it goes up from there. So 5.5, 5.4, 5.7, 5.9. So a 5.8 is a relatively easy climb. And I guess that's what caused me to say, "Yeah, I'm just going to solo climb it." And when I did, on this particular climb, my friend said I didn't have my helmet on. And every single climb I'd ever done before, I always had a helmet on because I knew, if you take a little fall, you'll get caught by the rope, and then if you smack your head, or if your partner above you is climbing, there's a little rock falls off, you're all safe. So my friend was an EMT before he joined the Coast Guard, which thank God for that, because I don't know if I'd be talking right here if he wasn't. So when I fell, he ran back to his truck, called the fire department, and he ran back to me. He got me somewhat taken care of as far as stopping bleeding or putting pads on my head where I fell and got hurt. And he just so happened to find some hikers on the trail when he was running back. And he pulled them aside and says, "Hey, I need you guys to wait here for the fire department. And when the fire department comes, tell them the climber is up this trail," because the main trail, you couldn't see the rock from that point. So I don't know the communication they had all over the phone, but when the fire department arrived, my friend told me they didn't bring a stretcher or anything like that. And you would think if someone fell off a rock, you might want to bring a stretcher. But my friend was very, very upset, and they told him, "Well, sorry, sir, we can't carry your friend back because he's too heavy in the trail. We don't have a stretcher." And I know my friend, he probably said some curse words, and he called the fire department chief and said, "Your two guys here are not doing their job, and my friend's going to die. You're going to get a helicopter here right now." And there just so happened to be a Navy helicopter, which I don't know why the Coast Guard wouldn't come save me, right? Sorry, guys. I gotta tease you every now and then. But I was working on my pilot's license, and I know how the calls go out. It's just all frequencies that there's someone hurt. If any helicopters or anyone's in the area, please assist. So they just happened to come out and be within 10 minutes or so. So the time I got hurt to the time I needed to be in surgery, I had a time window of about 4 hours. Otherwise, I may not have come home. And from what I've heard, like I said, I don't recollect any of it, but from the time I fell to the time I got into the hospital was about 2 hours and 45 minutes, somewhere around there. So the crew came in, picked me up, just like they always do and what they're trained to do. And even our YN1, the admin personnel at my work, drove up to where they were stationed and gave them my cell phone number. Then they called me. I got to talk to them, which I was really happy about that because I wanted to thank them and say, "Hey guys, thanks for taking me to the hospital," and it's very cool what you guys did. So I got hurt on the 5th of October, and then I wasn't out of the hospital until the 1st of November. And from the 5th of October to around, I don't really know what date, but possibly the 18th or 20th, I don't remember a single thing. It's just, I wasn't unconscious when I got hurt, which you'd think you would after something like that. But I was in and out, kind of talkative, sometimes not really nice or polite. And my diagnosis was a severe TBI, and I had broken my C7 vertebrae up here in my neck. So got out on the 1st of November, came down here to Navy Medical Center, San Diego, and my parents are here. They live in San Diego too. I'm from here, so I got to come home and hang out for a while. As far as any problems I had, let me back up. So besides the C7 vertebrae fracture, one thing that didn't happen for about 2 months was I didn't have any x-rays to follow up with the fracture. I just had to wear a neck brace 24/7, had to shower, sleep with it on. It was really uncomfortable. I couldn't sleep at all. And I got an x-ray done around the 18th or so of December, and on the 23rd, I was in surgery, getting a vertebrae fused together. It was instant. They said, "Colin, you need to come in as soon as possible. You've got to come in," because the vertebrae was out of alignment with the one above and underneath. And from my education from Dr. Pluth and the other TBI gentlemen, you can be paralyzed from that point if your vertebrae hits your spinal column. And so I was very thankful that they caught it when they did. As far as problems with my injury, one thing that was really hard was accepting what had happened. My parents could tell you I was up one day in the hospital. I'm like, why am I here? Why do I have staples in my head? I don't know what this is all about. And it was really hard to accept why I got hurt because I didn't have any recollection of it. So when I came down here, one thing that I had a hard time with was the rehab program here. And like I said, this is just a personal experience because it's a great program. I've gotten tremendous help from here, so for that I'm very thankful. But when I started the online computer program, I thought, what's this? I felt like some of these exercises they're having me do on the computer were under me. Like I'm, telling, I'm following little seagulls, whichever way they're pointing, and I just click the mouse pad. I'm like, I'm a student pilot. I can go land a plane, and you're telling me which, seagulls pointing up, down, left, or right? I didn't think that was, I thought I was above that or capably above that. So that was one of them. And then another thing that affected me was when I was out in public, people would always ask, oh man, how'd you get hurt? How'd you get hurt? Well, I got hurt rock climbing. Oh, no, you didn't. Come on, but you were in a car accident or motorcycle crash on your dirt bike. And I would get really, really mad. And I would tell myself, no, I fell climbing. And they wouldn't, it's like I felt like my story had no purpose to them. They were asking, and I told them the truth, but they didn't trust me for what I had to say. So that was kind of hard. Besides that, in the cognitive aspect of it, was I think what's called PTA, which is post-traumatic amnesia, and my short-term memory was out of it. If Dr. Mullins came up and told me, hey, I'm Lieutenant Commander Dr. Mullins, 5 minutes later I would know who she was at that point. And it was really hard because I would be talking about something with my parents, and then 20 minutes later I'd have no recollection of that conversation ever happening. So that was kind of hard. And another thing which is very common with TBIs is problem solving. When I was in Harborview Hospital up north, they had me count change, and then I couldn't, and it made me really mad because, if something's $15, you give me 20, I give you 5 ones back. It's simple stuff, but I couldn't do it, and that made me really mad. So I guess I was in denial over all of the problems I was having, but then I wasn't told why I was having these problems. So it was just like your mind's going crazy, but you don't know how to fix it. So as far as physical restrictions, like I said, I'm a very active person, grew up surfing, climbing, camping. You couldn't keep me inside. I was always outside playing, either on my sailboat up north with my friends, or I was camping or surfing. The physical aspect here when I came down here was hard because I couldn't pick up anything much more than 8 or 10 pounds. And that was hard because with my sport with CrossFit, I could get over, about 300 pounds over my head, and that was okay, But you had to kind of have a big old piece of humble pie when they tell you, hey, you can't pick up anything more than about 8 to 10 pounds or a gallon of water, and that was hard to admit. And another thing is I couldn't drive because, I was in this neck brace, couldn't twist my head or anything, so I felt like my sense of freedom was pretty much gone, and a lot of my friends that I grew up with were gone. Life just kind of spread. So I had one friend from early high school, maybe even 8th grade, that I came across with, and that was pretty much the only friend I had right close to my parents' house, and then 1 or 2 friends down at the coast, but I couldn't go see them because I couldn't drive, and that was hard to admit. So as far as things that helped me cope, guys, man, my parents have been very helpful in this way because, we've done things together, talked with my dad, my parents, my sisters, just doing stuff with the family or social outings, anything like that. But this kind of goes back to what Mrs. Mullins was saying about music. The one thing that brought me back and boosted my, I don't know, I guess cognitive or just helped your attitude was playing the guitar. I've been playing guitar for maybe 13, 15 years, somewhere around there. Even in Harborview, Seattle, my sister is a music teacher, and she was playing a very soft song by one of my favorite bands, and I wasn't unconscious, but I wasn't talking or anything. And they played a song from my favorite band, and that's what kind of, I just came to it. I was tapping my hand to the tempo of the music, and I was speaking along with the words. And ever since then, my parents get a little upset because I'll play guitar for a couple hours every day. And then other things that help me cope, focusing on my goals. I would love to go to OCS once I make second class in the Coast Guard and to finish up my pilot's license. My dad is a pilot currently, and I was raised on, and I met a real good friend that he's like, hey, I'm Colin. Hey, I'm Sean. I'm a flight instructor. What do you do? Well, I'm in the Coast Guard. I thought, oh boy, we're going to become friends because I really want to learn how to fly. And then as far as other things that helped me cope was getting out of that point where you didn't want to accept what was wrong. You got to accept what had happened and understand how to fix it. Because for the longest time, I didn't want to be told I was impaired or, half brain dead. That was really hard. No man wants to hear they're half impaired. So that's been one of those things, just music, social outings, and music, social outings with friends, and understanding what went wrong, and then having the support group here tell you how to change it and how to overcome it. And then as far as keeping other people or helping other people cope is keep them informed. When I came here, I was like, why am I playing luminosity little games? I'm like, what's this for? I didn't understand it. So communication, I think would be key in that way. Is to just tell them, it's like, hey buddy, this is where you got your injury. This is the parts of your mind that it hurt. These exercises can help you. And then also keep people in a positive way, whether it's socially or eating healthy or not playing video games all the time. That subject came up. I've never been a fan of that. And then also encourage people to do something they enjoy, whether it's reading a book, carving wood, or going for a walk on the beach. It could be anything. Just make them but also within their physical capabilities too. You don't want to just toss them out there and say, hey, go do whatever you want to do. Get people involved with something they love to do, because that really helped me with my playing because I was terrified when I would come home or after my accident, I wouldn't remember how to strum a guitar or how to tune it. And then as soon as I got home, that was the first thing I did, and it came back to me. So. And then besides that is just something that requires your cognitive attention. My dad, he'll chuckle about this one, but he tried to get me to do crossword puzzles and Sudoku, which to me is still the evil game. But I didn't understand how it was played, and I'm like, well, Dad, why do I have to do crossword puzzles? It was just little tiny steps that would help you along the way. So besides that, guys, that's pretty much my story. I made a very poor choice in deciding to climb without a rope, and it almost cost me my life. But when God blesses you with a second chance at life, you can truly appreciate things in life twice as much. And for that, it's a pretty cool thing. So anyway, I'm Colin if there's any questions. And I also would like to thank Dr. Mullins, Miss Alfreda Bird, and everyone involved with the TBI group, because I didn't understand at the time what was wrong in between the ears. And I was always focused on strengthening everything else from head to toe, whereas the thing between your ears, who needs that? But thank you guys for all the help and support. I'm greatly appreciative.
We do have a few extra minutes for questions if anybody has any for Colin. Yes.
Are you on active duty right now?
I am.
So the question was, is he on active duty right now?
What kind of things do you do?
Excuse me, ma'am?
What's your job? What kind of stuff are you doing right now?
So the question is he on active duty, and what are his duties?
Yes, ma'am, I am on active duty currently, and from what I've been told, I expect to make a full recovery and get back to work. But as far as activities here, I've been doing the rehab program, TBI, physical therapy, and speech therapy. And I was enrolled at the Sharp Hospital doing more consistent training. It was Monday through Friday. So I'm just working on repairing what was hurt. Anybody else? All right, guys. Oh, sir.
The ending was quite your conclusion of appreciation was very inspiring. And could you spend just a moment about what it is that you appreciate now?
The comment is more expansion on what Colin appreciates now.
Sure. Thank you, sir. I greatly appreciate that. It could be anything from watching a sunset to talking to my dad and my mom or my sisters. You know, it could be the simplest things. You know, when you realize, you know what, dude, you darn near didn't come home one day. And, you know, I don't want to turn this into a Christian or a faith-oriented meeting, but, you know, it's kind of hard to put away that someone didn't help carry me down that rock, you know, and when you come back from something like that, whether it's a TBI or a concussion or a deployment or anything like that, where you've gone through a heavy experience, you know, if your heart and your mind's in the right place, I think it could have a positive impact on you personally as far as appreciating things a lot more. And personally, it's been, I was kind of introverted earlier on. Before I got hurt, I wasn't the crazy guy at the party. You know, I wasn't outgoing, or I was just me. You know, I was a little quieter, so I wasn't always, hey, what's your name? Hey, what's your name? So I was a little introverted. But after the accident, I was a lot more social. I don't know why, but it's just one of those things. So I've been a lot more social, been trying to make new friends here and there, or just striking up a random conversation. But I guess at the end of the story, or to answer your question, is, you know, when you experience something traumatic, if your heart and mind's in the right place, you can appreciate pretty much anything.